Hi, and welcome to Fluff Up. I wanted to make something spooky, and I also wanted to play with how translucent felt can be, so I decided to make skeleton cat, or rather, cats with skeleton costumes, so that I could have a big fluffy body and some spooky bones. I started this project by laying down two thin layers of wool, with the fibers running perpendicular to each other. I then needle felted the wool together, not very tight but enough for it to become one big piece of wool. I am going to use this as the base layer for my cats, so I had to make sure there was enough surface to then build upon. I rolled the wool to make somewhat of a cone shape and then added wool to the weak spots. To complete the base of the cats, I used wet felting. And since I want to keep the cone shape, I first filled the base with bubble wrap. Since I wanted the cats to be hollow inside, I needed to make a strong base structure, and wet felting holds the wool fibers really tightly without becoming too thick. The materials you need to felt are hot water, shampoo, and some bubble wrap. Make sure the hot water isn't hot enough to burn you, since we will need to touch it in order to felt the wool. After carefully wetting the wool, I used a little bit of shampoo and spread it on the bubble wrap. I am using the flat side, not the side with the bubble. Then we just rub the wool with the bubble wrap, at first gently, but as the fibers stop shifting, you can move faster. The bubble wrap inside will shift as it gets wet, so you can add more so that it won't lose its shape. To get the wool to felt, we need to keep rubbing and adding hot water until it becomes one solid piece of wool. Once we are finished felting, we have to let it dry halfway and then remove the bubble wrap and let it dry completely. You will notice the base has shrunk as it dried. The wool will always shrink after wet felting, and the amount depends on the wool you use. The shifting of the wool left some holes after the wet felting, so I'm just patching those up and making sure that it's a strong base. Now that we've finished the hollow base, we can use needle felting to make it into a cat. I use short strands of wool and push the middle of them into the base so that the ends will stand and serve as the fur. I started with the white wool, which will form the skeleton bones, and later added the black fur. As I go, I make sure all the pieces of wool are well attached to the base. After attaching the wool, I cut the ends so that it will all stand at the same side. made the legs out of wet felted pieces and then carefully attached them to the body. Once I finished with most of the fur on the body, I started shaping a better head using more wet felted wool. I didn't try to make the head out of wet felting because I wanted more control over its features, and needle felting gives you a lot more detail. The paws are all made by needle felting a little ball and then adding them onto the leg. I used more pieces of wet felted fabric for the ears and did the exact same thing as I did with the rest of the body for the fur. I added little details to make sure the cat's skeleton would cover most of the cat's features. I also kept going back to make sure the bones had clean lines and weren't mixing too much with the fur. I didn't want my cat to be lonely, so I made a second cat. This one will be white with pink bones. Dyeing wool into pastel colors is something I haven't been successful in yet, so I used this rainbow wool, taking only the pink pieces. I wanted a cat with a white body and darker bones, but I didn't want it to be a negative of the other cat, so I chose a different color so it would have its own personality. For their tails, I used pipe cleaners, wrapping the wool around them and then using the needle to make it more secure. Then I added the details and the fur in the same way as in the body. Once the tail is firmly attached to the body, the final thing is just checking that all the fur and all the bones are perfect and in the way you want them. And here are the cats. Since the cats are hollow, we get different choices on how to light them up. I used the LED candles to reach all the way into their heads and the round ones for the body. And here are the cats all lit up. It was a little hard for the camera to pick them up when it was complete darkness, but I think you can still kind of see the effect. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let me know which cat was your favorite.